The mindset of an inspired generation. Power 98.7. Now we're talking.
20 minutes after 9 on the Power Perspective. So apologies that we were unable to reconnect with Cardinal Napier, but as I said, maybe there was another kind of intervention on that one. No, I must make light of these things. But yeah, we will rearrange that chat for whenever he will be available next. I imagine that won't be for a few days yet, but as soon as we can, we will get him back. We'll invite him back onto the show. But now on to my next guest. And we were talking in the first hour with a few people that on this Workers' Day, that what does Workers' Day mean when so many in this country are out of work? And then we had Nari who called through and made the point that how are we going to create work when we don't have people who create those jobs? So we're not without jobs, he says. It's not a country of jobs. The problem is not that we don't have jobs, is that we don't have people creating the work. That is the space, of course, of entrepreneurs. And my next guest, I think, qualifies as such. He has just written a book. It's titled The First Generation Founder, How to Build a Startup Mindset and Thrive. He himself is an entrepreneur, CEO of IT Think, which is IT Think Gaming, which is the part of a whole string of different business initiatives that he is involved in. Raymond Ledwaba is my guest. Good evening to you, Ray, and thank you very much for coming in to talk to us.
Good evening, TT, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Good evening to the listeners.
And congratulations on the publication of this book. That's the first thing I always say to any author, because I know what it takes to start writing your book and to get to the process of writing your book. So congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
Let me talk about the timing of the book. Why now? Because why was this the right time to tell your story? Because often you'll hear sometimes people will say, because it's a type of a memoir, even though it's not just all about your personal story, but people say, no, but I haven't done enough to chronicle my life. Sure. So what decided on the timing for you?
Yeah, so this is a very good question, and a question I grappled with when writing this book, because I was very doubtful of my place in the world, in the business world, worried about the very same point. Or have I done enough? Have I risen to the top of the mountain and now I can tell people, hey, listen, I'm here. This is how you get here. And so I struggled because I'm still in the trenches. I'm still building the businesses that I run. But the book came about because I was asked to write the book.
Okay.
I was approached by a publisher to write the book. They heard about my story and they thought it is, I suppose, good enough or worthy to be published. And when they approached me, because I was a bit worried myself, I said no. And then we went into this dance for a while where they said, listen, you should do it. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm not ready. And I think that's just the journey of so many people in life, right? Yeah. That's the situation many people find themselves in, where sometimes opportunities land on your doorstep, but you yourself are unsure about your position in the world, and you think you are not ready.
Yes.
And, as entrepreneurs, we know that when you're going to do anything, build a business venture, you will never, ever, ever be ready for anything. But it's just going in, even though you're not ready. And in the process, many things will happen. And you'll find that you've been ready a long time ago.
At the time that they approached you, had you actually started yourself
No.
chronicling your journey? Not even.
It
wasn't even in your an idea in your head.
No, it wasn't.
Wow.
I mean, like, the title of the book is The First Generation Founder, and I think many of us are we are amongst the generation of many firsts in our lives. So in my family, there's no author.
You're the first published author in your family.
In my family, right? So there's no way I could have started. Like, I would have seen somebody who wrote a book,
that idea,
and then I say, okay, no, look, I need to start journaling. I need to start, writing or having voice notes or voice recordings of things that happen in my life, because one day I will need them.
Well, now I can hear you've got a plan for the next book.
Now I do.
It sounds like now you're operating with a plan.
For sure.
And what was it like then putting it together? What was the approach that you took being your first?
Yeah.
It was your first. It was not one that was your idea. So oh my goodness, I'm just trying to think about, I was saying to you, I know how difficult it is to write a book. So that lonely journey and so that thankless work, how do you even motivate yourself when it's not even your idea?
In all
this
honesty,
is not your project. Yeah.
In all honesty, I started so I got the contract. So after the dance with the publisher, I signed a contract, and I had a deadline, and I missed the deadline completely. Like, I hadn't even written one word when the time.
What was the initial deadline? How many months had they?
So it was a year. They gave me a year to write.
And the deadline came and went, and you hadn't.
And I hadn't even written one word.
Oh wow!
That's how
They hadn't given you an advance, right?
No, they hadn't given me an advance. Thank God. But there were a couple of things that also happened. During that year, I lost my father. I lost my sister. So it was quite a tough year.
There was a lot going on.
There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And then one day, like in the book, I also write about imposter syndrome, and I'm very honest about my imposter syndrome, even in writing the book, because I wanted to quit, man. I wanted to call the publisher and say, listen, I know I signed the contract, but I can't do this. Thing is too hard. I'm not a writer. You guys, how could you trust me
with a project
like this, with this privilege? And so my commissioning editor is Mbalisi Kakane, and she is one of the most, I think, amazing human beings in this industry. Because the day I called her to quit, after the call I said, oh man, there's no way I can disappoint this lady. She's fighting so hard for me, and she believes so hard in me that I really need to do the best that I can and put this project out there. So I wanted to quit, and then called to quit, and ended up being inspired to say, listen, you know what? I have to deliver. Yeah. And it was quite tough, early mornings, because, I still run businesses. Yeah. So I would wake up in the mornings and work on it. And, the publisher put together a good team that helped me to assist me in the whole process. And a year later, we delivered the book. It went to print on the 20th of December, 2024. And it was published and released mid-Feb 2025.
Right. And how was the sense of accomplishment? I mean, you're somebody who've already set up businesses. So you've watched the businesses grow from nothing into thriving businesses. But what about the completion of this project? How did that make you feel?
Immense pride.
Yeah.
I was so proud that I was able to defeat my own imposter syndrome. And I was very proud that, the thing that I thought was unattainable, now it's done, And something that is so out of your comfort zone. So out of my comfort zone. And I think that's one of the things this book is helping, or rather pushing me through. It's putting me in positions and in places where I'm extremely uncomfortable.
Wow. And since you've started there, your whole discussion in the book about imposter syndrome comes quite deep into the book. But since you've taken us there, let's go with that. And about, I imagine that imposter syndrome can be a huge hurdle and an obstacle to getting involved in meaningful things.
Sure.
And I'm not even just talking about business here. I'm talking about just anything in life where you just feel inadequate.
Yeah.
How much of that was affected? Because I mean, I hear from you reading your story, you're somebody who we were driven. You had a plan, So the idea that something is out of your comfort area didn't seem to me like it would bother you, because or is that something that you've had to learn? Maybe let me put the question to you.
Yeah. No, it's something I've grappled with for a very long time in my career. And I would remember, when I was still in corporate, there would be town halls or meetings where we would have, and in that meeting they would communicate that there is a role, there's a vacancy, and it's a senior vacancy. And I would never apply for it.
Even though you ticked every box.
And I would convince myself that that so-and-so is already being earmarked for this thing.
You sabotage yourself.
I would sabotage myself. And so I would not even try. And I think that's the biggest danger with imposter syndrome, is that it convinces you that you shouldn't even attempt. It's not so much that you will try and fail, which I think is a worthy cause. To try and fail. Absolutely. To be in the arena, to play the game, to be in the ring and, take the punches, because you might also hit and knock someone out. It's better to be in that ring than to be on the outside watching all the time and watching other people play the game.
And then have regrets later.
And then you have regrets later.
You've done better than this one.
Yeah, so I've had to deal with it, and I've had to train myself, like you said. And I've had to look at imposter syndrome differently. And you see now, like I've said, this book is pushing me, and it's making me extremely uncomfortable. And I'm embracing it. Because I know through this discomfort, that's where my growth lies.
Absolutely.
So I have to take on the challenge and not be too afraid of it. And not to also be too afraid of the outcome of what if my book only 10 people buy it, or maybe only my family and friends buy it and nobody cares about it. I think that's not the point.
Not at all.
The outcome, although it matters, and although we all obviously want great outcomes in whatever we do, I think the effort, putting myself in the ring, I think for me, for where I'm at right now, I think that's good enough.
I was talking just last week, was it earlier this week, we were talking to an entrepreneur, and so also in the tech space. And I was talking to him about, like, when he was talking about his business ventures and how many different kind of ventures that he's been involved in. And I was saying that one of the things that I was reading, I can't remember whose biography it was. I think it was probably the Steve Jobs one, which I see you reference quite a bit as well in your book, where I think they talk about that there are so many people starting things and some of them never go anywhere. But there is a culture, as strange as this may sound, but there is a culture of failure in the US. That is what makes the US great, is that there is so much opportunity to fail. But here we have a culture that is so anti getting in there and failing. People were driven by a fear, because everything even around us, and you will know better than I, that when there's so many obstacles placed to your success and not enabling environment that are created. Yeah.
Of course, I mean, of course there are external factors that we could look to and say, hey man, if only this and this happened externally outside of me, it would be great. I think the reason why in South Africa in particular we don't have a culture of tolerating and accepting failure and risk-taking, I think it's genetic. I think most of it lies in, if you look at our history and if you look at how black people and our forefathers just didn't have the opportunity to take risk. They were so confined. They had to be obedient. They had to play by the rules. And so,
I mean, you speak about the story of your own father in the book, about how he was somebody with the potential and probably the acumen to have, gone on to have a career in academia or whatever.
Sure.
But the opportunity was just never
The
there.
opportunity was not there, and he ended up working for one company all his life, 40 years at Spoornet, right now Transnet. And I think what I've had to learn, and going back to this issue of, because it bothers me a lot, this issue that we don't embrace failure and see it as a badge of honor, whereas in the US, that it's a badge of honor. You know, if you go to an investor, the first question they ask you is, how many companies have you started and failed at, and what were the lessons you've learned, and what are you going to do differently this time if I fund you, right?
Because if you don't have a story of failure, that means that you are still waiting to make mistakes.
With my money. So I must invest in you knowing that you haven't failed and bounced back, because it's such an important trait, the ability to bounce back. And I think in America, or in more mature markets, investors are looking for people with the ability to bounce back.
Yeah.
Because entrepreneurship is so hard. In fact, your first idea won't be the one. It might be your 50th idea. And so how do you pivot? How do you keep at this game trying different things over and over and over and over until you get the right one? But I really want to go back to this issue of our what we inherit and our genes, and why South Africa in particular, and maybe it's an African problem. If our forefathers and those that came before were obedient, were conservative, they didn't risk because they couldn't risk. They weren't allowed to risk. Now you come into the world with this gene that you must always be playing by the rules, because I think psychological traits can also be passed down from generation to generation. Absolutely. It's not just physiological traits. It's not just high blood pressure and diabetes that gets passed down from generation to generation. It can also be the fact that you are conservative.
Yeah.
So if you are conservative, you might be beating yourself up, because I think, just like me, we wanted to start businesses, but I was wondering, like, why is it so hard for me to take this risk? And I think if we don't understand that some of these things are genetic, some of these things we've inherited, so we need to train ourselves that, just like you can take high blood pressure medication, you don't have to die of a stroke because your mother had a stroke. You can also change and rewire how conservative you are so that you can be more risk tolerant,
My guest is Raymond Ledwaba. He is the author of a book titled The First Generation Founder, How to Build a Startup Mindset and Thrive. We will carry on with our conversation talking about, startup mindset and entrepreneurship, and of course, taking those first steps towards your entrepreneurial journey. Stay with us. This is The Power Perspective.
Power Perspective with TT, Monday to Thursday, 8 p.m. to midnight.
I think it's safe to say that BBK was excited last Friday night. All right, my guest in studio on The Power Perspective this evening is Raymond Ledwaba. He is the author of the book titled The First Generation Founder, How to Build a Startup Mindset and Thrive. So he's now talking about, this culture. It's a culture that we need to create. And I mean, this is something that you speak of quite extensively in the book and the opening chapters about taking that first step. You were in a comfortable corporate environment, building your career, and I think it would be accurate to say that things were going well for you, to take that decision. So I'll ask it this way. First of all, in your view, are entrepreneurs born or entrepreneurs made?
This is a very...
Especially based on what you've also said about what you inherit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We spoke about your father not having had the opportunities in life. If he grew up in a world that allowed him opportunities, could there have been an entrepreneurial spirit in him? I wonder. But how do you view that? Nature or nurture?
Yeah, I think You know, I've met a lot of people who will say to me, when I ask them about their entrepreneurial journey, they will tell me they knew from primary school because they started selling something in primary school.
Yeah.
And throughout high school and when they finished, school, they knew they are not going to go into employment.
Yeah.
So it's clear that it's nature. So it's clear that for those people, it's a natural gift.
For you?
For me, I think it had to be nurture.
Yeah.
I think for me, I've had to think about like the experience that I have received in corporate and try to use that to my advantage in business. And
then it helped that you also had someone in your life that could be an inspiration, your brother, who had already gone that route.
Yeah, and Jeff had gone that route. I think for him, it is nature. So we could come from the same family, but
we were
wired differently. For me, I honestly don't think that question matters, TT. I honestly think the question of nature versus nurture, I don't think it matters, particularly in a country like South Africa. I think the question we should rather be asking is how can we create an environment and create psychological safety for more people to attempt to become entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
I think it's a psychological safety issue. And I think a lot of people do not even try because they don't feel safe. They don't feel like there's a safety net. They feel like they've got lots to lose, and there's a fear of like, if this thing doesn't work out, what will people say? So I think we need to figure out how do we create more psychological safety in this country and have people feel like they can try this thing. And I say try because it's not for everybody.
No,
I'm not one to say entrepreneurship is for everybody. Yeah. Everybody must quit their jobs and build businesses, right? But I think those who have the urge and the desire to try should. And how do we get more people trying?
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying about it shouldn't be about whether you're born for it or not.
Yeah.
That should be irrelevant. It's about how you create opportunities.
Sure.
So here's another theory I've also had on why South Africa struggles to build and inculcate and get that spirit of entrepreneurship take root in South Africa. It's because the reality is that the story of the vast majority of South Africans is they've never been employed. So now let me tell that there's a lot, it sounds a little counterintuitive in terms of what we're saying, we're trying to encourage. You speak a lot of, in fact, there's a lot of things in here that are almost, as you say, counterintuitive or almost paradoxic in terms of how things are that are supposed to happen, how they're supposed to happen. So if you have never worked in your life, you don't even look at the world in a way that an entrepreneur does, in terms of, because entrepreneurs solve problems. That's what somebody who starts a business, a successful business, they were able to create something that solves a problem. Now, if you've never worked in your life, it's my view that you don't look at the world through that kind of lens. That you, even though you went in a direction that was not directly related to what you were trained for or what you went and studied, you're an accountant. Now today you're a gaming entrepreneur. That is the industry involved in this. Of course, there are elements of accounting there, but that's not what your training was. But because you had been in a world, where you're employed, part of your work, was in consulting was to check people's, ventures, whether they could work and couldn't work. So you have that kind of mindset. Now, when we are grappling here with this chicken or egg situation where how do we get people having an entrepreneurial mindset who have never even known about work? And I know that you can start thinking about starting your own business. This is a very long question, but but
I get
you've started, you work within a business. So you know what it takes to start a business. Doesn't mean you'll be successful, but you at least know.
You can try.
Like, okay, this is what a CEO does. Okay, this is what a financial director would do in a business. you've never worked a day in your life, you can't be thinking about, I'm going to start a business.
Ish, man.
Yeah.
I fully agree, and I want to just expand on
Please
that idea
do.
further.
Please do. Yeah.
Because a friend of mine now was telling me, I work with him, he's a co-founder in the gaming business, and his biggest frustration is that when we hire people, because sometimes we hire people who've never worked before, most of our time is spent teaching you not about the job itself, but about, they're called soft skills, but I don't really want to call them soft skills.
Because they're not soft.
They're not soft. So, for example, if you are stuck, I gave you something to do and you are stuck, don't just sit there being stuck for hours. Speak up. Say, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. I tried 1, 2, 3, 4.
And
because
nobody trains you.
Nobody trains you to do that, right? Because then what ends up happening is that you give someone a task and you think that task is being done. Then you come the next day, hey, how far are you? Say, no, I was stuck. Like, so you were stuck. Yeah. You said nothing, Or I was waiting for you to tell me what to do. That's another thing. Being proactive. So if you've never worked before, you don't know that you should be proactive. So many of us are actually spending most of our time not building the business itself. And I was listening in the car, and one of the callers was saying, we need to create jobs in this country, and businesses need to create jobs. And I think that's one of those things that's also a paradox, because I think this, maybe also I wonder if it's an affliction for only black entrepreneurs. This idea that, black business must create jobs versus other types of business that must make money. And I think it's an important distinction, this one. We really need to think about it a lot, because for me, a business that is making money thinks and decides different. Like the decision-making tree for a company that says we are making money is very different to a company that says we are creating jobs. For example, poor performance of a staff member. You need to let some people go because they are not helping you make money. It's very easy when you make money to say, no, I'm going to cut. But when you're creating jobs, it's very different. It's very difficult. And I feel like in South Africa, for many black businesses, we are trying to create jobs. And the way we move, the way we make decisions is...
Are we trying to create jobs? Or are we trying to make money?
I think we're trying to create jobs, but we're in business. So sometimes, the decisions that we make, we let some people stay for way too long when they are not serving us anymore.
We don't make decisions that are in the interest of the business.
Yes, we make decisions that are in the interest of job creation.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be a hindrance. But again, it's a paradox, because in South Africa, when so many people are unemployed.
Yeah, to start talking about that.
We have to create jobs.
Okay.
So, it's a double whammy for us.
Yeah. All right, that's Ray Ledwaba, author of the First Generation Founder, How to Build a Startup Mindset and Thrive. It's all about his business journey, how he made the massive decision to leave a very comfortable job in corporate. He tells that story. The idea is that you buy the book. I'm not going to go and tell you everything that he says about his journey. You need to go and learn about that. Nara is in Blackout. I think you are the caller that Ray was referring to when he says you were talking about creating jobs.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, Tobela Kamubu.
Tobela.
Hey, le guy. All right. Well, on this thing you said about entrepreneurs are born or they are made.
Yeah.
I think renally problem with the government have stopped this thing like for Vana, like to sell stuff, That thing actually was a good idea because it builds a child, you understand? Or I believe that spirit, or something, you understand? So I think that's where as well we got wrong. Like they can just sell something. You know, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but that whole idea, like you have to sell it. I understand, yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's very important to program our kids, you know.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Nari, in Blackout. So, but I mean, just to talk more a little bit about when you decided as well that you were going to make the big leap, again, you speak about the value that corporate adds into all of this, that what you learn and what it teaches you, about, you mentioned a number of things there, like managing time, the importance of time. And I think you spoke of described it as systems. I think
incubator, corporate incubator.
Yes, that what it teaches you. So at the same time, Ray, you are busy telling me I need to go out there and make the jump, and at the same time you are telling me I need to pay my dues and learn about the thing. So that's why then it becomes tricky to say when is it the right time. Again, we were talking earlier on about to say we are always so fearful. Fear drives us. Then it's never the right time. So how do I know whether I've taken in as much as is required from corporate, or is it one of those things you'll know?
It's one of those things. It's a personal journey. Every entrepreneur's journey is different. And I think trying to compare yourself to other people and other people's journeys is a trap, My view is, if you are in corporate and you're learning and you're having this opportunity to earn an income and you can do other things on the side, you can have all these side hustles, because that's how it started even for me, right? It's a good step to start other things whilst employed. I think it's actually a wise move,
And the first thing you started wasn't even a business.
It wasn't a business.
Yeah.
Well, I tried a business in film.
You did.
Tried to do a documentary. I bought
but I didn't. Was that when you ventured in that direction? Were you trying to make money, or you were trying to tell stories?
I was trying to tell stories. I love stories.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell a story.
Yeah.
I took a 100K loan, personal loan.
Yeah.
In 2008.
It's very
in my
expensive
first
debt.
year of work. I should have bought a car in hindsight, maybe not.
But they gave you 100,000.
My brother, I asked
That's
my
impressive.
brother. I asked my brother to take the loan on my behalf.
I see. Yes, because he was already. Yeah.
And then I was paying him, and he trusts me, so he took the loan. So that was my first business. I tried to build a film company, and then it failed because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had all this expensive equipment, and I took a loan to pay the loan, and there was no money coming in. So that's the first. And then in 2015, I started a non-profit called Diski 99. It's a sports NGO.
That's the non-business I was talking about.
Yeah, that's the it's still a business,
I was about to say, as much as it's a not-for-profit, that doesn't mean it's not a business.
For sure. Yeah. And I think serving other people, you end up serving yourself. I spent the whole day today. We had a netball tournament at UJ.
Oh, it's part of Diski 99.
Yeah, it's part of Diski 99.
Because you guys did expand into netball.
Yeah, we expanded into netball. And so, that was the first venture that I started. And I was employed, and I did it for 2 years. And it started growing because we actually started having work opportunities at Orlando Stadium, at FNB Stadium, at Loftus Stadium. So it morphed from just a NGO to a social enterprise. So where we were starting to make money. And I was taking calls with clients.
While you're in the office?
At my desk.
Yeah.
Next to my boss.
On somebody else's time.
Next to my boss.
Yeah.
So at some point I thought, I'm going to get fired.
Yeah.
I really need to leave.
Not going to end well.
Yeah. So if you're in corporate, for me, that was also knowing that it's time.
Yeah.
Because
you
understand. I thought I was going to get fired. This non-profit was doing well. We started to make money. And then my brother also wanted me to help him in IT think.
Yeah.
So it was a combination of factors that made me leave. But I think for everyone out there, they will know when it's time.
we are coming up for news time, but I wanted to ask you about something. You know, one of the attributes that not often come out, especially in books about this type of things. You know, where people are chronicling their entrepreneurial journey. One of the things that never comes out is the importance of the personal relationships that you have. You speak about lessons that you learned from your father, and he doesn't talk about some great business lesson that he taught you, but how he taught you the importance of love. And I'm going to give you a chance because we started a bit later. If we can stay on a bit later so we can... I want you to address that as well. But let's quickly take Richard before we go to news. Richard in Makapan, good evening.
Good evening, Titi.
Yes, sir.
Titi, I'm listening to the extraordinary odyssey that the man is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most of the section that I wanted to talk about was book writing.
Mm.
And, Eric Parker once wrote a book, Run Your Business and Make a Lot of Money. And in the book, he said, retired entrepreneurs should be recalled to ease the burden of unemployment in South Africa. Now, I was in business from 1983, maybe to 1994. I was not afraid to start, even if I was the first in the family to start a manufacturing factory, you know. So, during that time, we had a book in Bukutatswana that said, made in Bukutatswana. So, they encourage the people to start businesses, manufacturing businesses. You know, when you were doing motor mechanic, you were not registered in the book. When you were doing any other repairing of anything, no, you are not registered. Only manufacturers.
People were making things.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate. 1994, everything was falling down. And I had to write a book, The Wind of Change Blows Through the Face of Time, so to tell the story, you know. So the extraordinary odyssey that this man is talking about is taking me, you know, it's making me crazy, but I enjoy it.
In a good way, I hope. Oh, thank you so much and for the call, Richard. And I hope you'll go and get yourself a copy so you can also read about Raymond's journey in business. Thank you so much.
All right.
That's Richard on the line from Makapanstad, an entrepreneur himself. Raymond Ledwaba is my guest. He's the author of The First Generation Founder, How to Build a Startup Mindset and Thrive. So before the break there, I just hinted at something there that you speak of in the book, which I don't think really enough is made of, you know, and that you were saying that one of the lessons you learned from your father was not some great business lesson, but about how to love, and especially the love that he showed your mother, you spoke about.
Yeah.
Why is that such an important thing? I mean, it seems like an obvious question to ask, but I want you to explain why it is something that is you attach so much value to.
Yeah. I mean, we can build all the businesses that we want and do all, these amazing initiatives, but if people are not involved, if we're not, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have people who love you, what's the point? So
are you saying money can buy love?
I mean, I think a lot of people are trying to, but I think it's so important to have people who know and believe and trust that they will have your back no matter what, whether you lose it all or you make the billions, they will be there for you and they will tell you how it is. They're not going to hide things. They're not going to always try to feather your cap.
They will always tell you the truth.
They will tell you the truth, So my father and my mother had a 35-year marriage. They had a really amazing, beautiful relationship that I've learned so much from just witnessing. I've witnessed my father being so selfless, and it almost feels like his number one priority in life was my mother, and then everybody else came after, and so I'm trying, even in my own life.
I was about to ask how is he racking up?
Yeah, I mean, My fiance Val is in the studio, and she's such a great support system for me.
Well, clearly now we can see why you make that's the reason why I actually asked you the question.
She's such a great support system because this life is so difficult, and I think it's very important that we are real about how difficult the journey of life is, and I think we make it even 10 times harder when we try build a business, because when you're building a business, everything around you is convincing you that you are going to fail. Everything. So you have to.
And also, when you take that decision, it's not just, it doesn't just impact you alone.
It doesn't impact you alone, because it's so hard to switch off. I think many entrepreneurs, we face a great difficulty in switching our minds off. And so if you don't have somebody in your life that can help you do that, that can help you unwind, you can go on a walk, simple, free things, and you can spend that quality time, you're going to go nuts. I mean, it's really your chances of, you're already a crazy person when you build a business.
Yes, yeah.
But you don't obviously want to end up in a mental institution. So it's important to have somebody that loves you, somebody that you love, that you can build with, that will understand the journey, that will be patient.
You took it even one step further. Not only did you go and make sure that you had somebody close that loves you, is a support system. You went and got into business with somebody you love, your own brother. Seems like a recipe for disaster right there.
Yeah, I know for many people it is. But like I said, my brother, when I had just started my job in 2008, I was working at PwC. I was an article clerk on the path to being a chartered accountant. And I had a wild idea to start a film company. And I knew nothing about film.
And he backed you.
He took the loan in his name. He trusted that this guy will pay me back and I'll pay the loan. And I did.
And even though he didn't believe in the idea himself.
I think he thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Of course. Because he's like, what? 100,000? You just started your job. I was 3 months
and you're not even
into
asking him
job.
for money. Maybe, I wonder, did he ever tell you why he actually decided to back you?
No, actually, I have never had that conversation with him.
Apart from the fact that you're his brother in the band.
But TT, my brother, I've got 2 brothers and a late sister. So Jimmy and Jeff. These 2 guys, and I think it has to come from my father and how my father raised us and showed us love, because my mother had a stroke when I was 15. And so for 15 years of my mother's life, she was in pain and half paralyzed. And my father was there every step of the way. And like I said, he prioritized her more than everybody else. And I think that love, it flows down. So my brothers, we didn't come from much. But I remember I never felt like there was anything I lacked my whole life. And
certainly not love.
Certainly not love, And I remember when I would ask anything of my brothers, I need sneakers, I need soccer boots, I need whatever. I know they would say, hey, bruh, I don't have it now. But they would surprise me. I would even forget I asked them. They would never forget. So I come from that type of support system. And so for me, being in business with my brother, when he believes so much in me, in my crazy ideas, I mean, there's no recipe for disaster.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking perhaps he may have even backed you, because you didn't come for him asking for 100,000 to go buy a car, or and maybe the idea that you actually wanted to start a business is maybe what, but he'll have to answer that one himself.
Sure.
So let's quickly have it. We haven't even spoken about your business. You went now the business that you guys are into. I think
IT Think.
No, is that how you IT
Yes,
Think?
IT Think,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
there you go. IT Think. Sorry, that's how I said it the first time. IT Think. The name is almost self-explanatory that you are very much in the IT space, but this gaming element is what fascinated me there.
Sure.
And how you are trying to blend your bigger ideas with business. And I'm thinking, like, I get there. where you are coming from, but ultimately, when you're in that space, lofty ideals like promoting Africa, do they not become secondary when you're trying to make money here? It's about how do I penetrate the biggest gaming markets, which are the Asian markets? How do I penetrate the United States? That people are not just going to buy a game, some kumbaya game.
We have this conversation all the time in the office because we building a video game development business, and we're also building the video game ecosystem in South Africa. I founded the AfriGames Consortium, which is a conglomerate of organizations in the training space. So we've got Academy of Digital Arts in Cape Town as part of our consortium. We also have Wits University Incubator. So there's training institutions, and there's studios, then there's like a business event, and we are all collectively pooling our resources and working together to build the gaming ecosystem. And we feel, or at least I see a gap in the market. It's so obvious, and it's so strange that many people would say, but why would you want to build an African-inspired game? Well, the reality is there's 3 billion people on the planet who play video games. There's less than 1% of video games on the planet that are made by Africans. Problem number one. Yeah. There's less than 1% of video games on the in the world that have African stories, African narratives, African characters, African music, you name it. And for me, I think we've seen in the content space the need for something different. It's actually not a fairy tale thing that we're trying to do. We have clear example. Amapiano comes from South Africa.
It's
right?
taking the world by storm.
It's taken the world by storm. Afro beats from Nigeria or Ghana, West Africa. It's taken the world by storm because it's new, it's fresh, it's different. So for me, it's clear that if people who've never had the opportunity to build video games are given that platform to build, the stories that we tell, even though we might not intentionally or force them, they must be African.
Yeah.
I think everybody's lived experience, the fact that you are building and you are living in this continent or in this country, I think the ideas are just going to be that refined, that nuanced. That's, it's going to have something different, something special.
Yeah. You mentioned in the book there was a project at the time you were writing that you said you were busy with. Where is that? I don't know if you know what I'm referring to.
Yes, it's this AfriGames Consortium that I spoke about. Yeah.
Okay, so where are you right now then? You were working on something busy as a consortium.
Sure. So our consortium, AfriGames, you can check it out, afrigames.co.za. We are in the second year of implementation. Awesome. We've gotten support from National Treasury through the Jobs Fund, and we've pitched to the Jobs Fund that we have managed to come to you, government. You always say in the creative industries that people don't speak with one voice. Individual companies come and then look for support. So we come as a collective and we come with one voice.
And with skin in the game.
With skin in the game, because we've put also our own resources into the project. And our ambition is to develop the gaming ecosystem. We would like to see South Africa as the biggest video gaming hub or the hub for game development on the continent.
Okay.
And we can't do it alone. There is absolutely no industry in the world that has ever thrived without government support. None.
Absolutely.
We need the right interventions, the right support. We need to build a conducive policy. And right now the industry is unregulated. The industry is pretty much non-existent. So it's a mission we are into our second year of the project, and it's amazing because now more people want to join us. Initially it was tough to convince people to give me money, and now everybody's saying, "Hey,"
because you've shown a level of commitment to it. Yeah. All right. As we conclude, I want to ask you. Your book is full of lessons that you have learned and lessons that you wish to impart to others that they should learn. Now that you've the part of the journey that you have walked, because I mean, you are still building. What is it that you wish you knew now, or that you knew then? What you have since learned right now, and a lesson that you wish somebody had given young Raymond, who was just fresh out of university, or while you were sitting, or just maybe on the eve of starting your own business. What is a lesson that what you know now that you wish you knew then?
I think what I know now is that I am convinced that I've got divine destiny in my life. I am convinced now that I am not here by mistake. I wasn't called to write a book because it was a mistake. I am not building these businesses by mistake. Yes, they might not all succeed, but me as an individual, Raymond Ledwaba, I am not a mistake. And because I'm not a mistake and I've got divine destiny, I need to believe and trust in this process that I'm not here by some chance. There's a bigger picture. I'm playing a role. I need to commit myself fully to the calling, to this role. And don't worry too much when I doubt myself, because I was very doubtful. I was so worried. What if this doesn't work? What if this doesn't work? Now I know for a fact, if it doesn't work, it wasn't meant to work. Something else will come up that is meant to work. So I now have full belief in myself that I didn't know then, because I've seen, man, even Jeff says, bruh, so many things in our business, only God, it's God. God wants us to succeed. That's the only explanation, and we must just take it as that and move with it. God wants us to succeed.
I wonder, you speak about, you write about luck in your book, and I am of the fear. I'm certainly a believer. I know you were dismissive in the book about the idea of luck, or at least how we conceive luck, because I do think that certain things that God that you speak of, things have to align in that way. That the idea that things that just were not in your radar suddenly pop up in your radar, or the fact that you succeed at something that you shouldn't be succeeding at. That is the kind of what people will call luck. And then for those who are, Christians or spiritual people, they would say that is God. So that luck does play a role. Those are themes that are explored in the book. The first generation founder. There's plenty more that we didn't get to, but that's for you to go and find out in the book. It talks about the politics of becoming an entrepreneur in South Africa, a black entrepreneur, and the challenges, the enormous challenges that they still face. You speak about racism and how that manifests in your world. It's all in the book. I hope people will go out and find it and read it and buy it and read it. But thank you again, and congratulations once again on the book. And thank you so much for coming in. All the best in all your endeavors and all the enterprises that you are going to start in now, that you're busy with, and those in the future. I really appreciate your time.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity, Titi. I appreciate it.
Most welcome.